Thanks for tuning in to more college football talk, the Rutgers Football Report, following Rutgers' first loss of the season, and joining me to preview the next game in line, the first home opener in the Big Ten for Rutgers in 2021 against Ohio State. Richie Schnyderite joining us from Rivals. Richie, how's it going?
As always, Greg, it's going good. Can't complain one bit.
How are you feeling 5 minutes after the game?
After the Michigan game?
Yes.
Honestly, I was eerily confident in this football team. I was like, wow, I don't think anyone, media, or maybe even, you can't argue, fans too, expected that type of outcome. Heck of a game by Rutgers, especially the second half, the adjustments they made. I think they held Michigan to like 50, 60 yards in the entire second half. And they held the run game, the Michigan run game, which is going into that game was probably the best in the country. And they held them to under 4 yards per carry, which is phenomenal. So this defense is beyond legit. The offense obviously still needs some tinkering here and there, but I really felt like they could have won. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like a moral victory, if you want to call it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's not what coach wants or the players want, but you have to be realistic about it. And it could have been a lot worse. And this was like the best case scenario without winning, really, because it wasn't like they had the ball at the 1 yard line with 5 seconds to go. It could have been a lot worse in that circumstance, or it could have been a blowout. So it was one of those things where they had the ball with a chance to tie it, and then lo and behold, the first turnover of the season happens at the worst time. But, it happens. And like you said, I kind of felt the same way. As I was watching the comeback, I wasn't like getting too carried away, like, oh, are we going to win this? It was just more, I was just enjoying the moment.
Yeah, I mean, for a team that before the game announced that their starting right guard was out for the season, you thought the offense was going to be like kind of stagnant, but the run game showed up to play. Yep. Pacheco had over 100 yards on just 20 carries. So, I mean, it's over 5 yards a carry. And, the passing game needs a little more help here and there, but again, you're going against the Michigan defensive line that, again, is one of the top in the country. So it's expected to struggle. But overall, like a very solid performance. And you mentioned the one turnover they kind of had. That was kind of just forcing it a little bit on Noah's part, I feel like. And if they were closer in score, I don't know if he does that. But end of the day, you got to do that. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, again, it was tough, but it's not something that we hold against him. The thing, though, that is still kind of bothering, I think, a lot of Rutgers fans is the fact that we're still hearing how great he's playing. And it's like, okay, see, I think he's playing really good based on what we know he can do and what limitations he has, what limitations we have as a team, and all of that. But you can't say it like that. So you just say he's doing a really good job. But to say that, like, Noah Vedral is playing great quarterback for Rutgers is like, okay, on one hand, yes, but on another hand, 6, 7, maybe years from now, I hope not that long, we'll look back and we'll go, now you see the difference between a really good quarterback and Noah Vedral?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of bring up a very good point. Yeah, he's throwing 68% completion percentage. That's phenomenal. Yeah, he has no interceptions. That's great, too. But he's also throwing for, 150, 170 yards per game around there. The numbers are kind of skewed because that Delaware game he threw for 300 something.
That's true.
But, he hasn't done anything too crazy. He's doing what he's capable of. We knew that he wasn't a phenomenal quarterback. We knew he didn't have the big arm talent. His job is basically get the ball to these playmakers, get these guys in open space, and then let them do their things. Most of his passes, I think, this entire season have came within the first tier or maybe borderline second tier, with the occasional deep bomb against a Delaware or Temple.
Sure. But you heard what they said about McDonald's comments. He was like, I'd never seen a team that threw the ball more at the line of scrimmage than Rutgers.
Yeah, they like I said, they know Noah Vedral doesn't have a strong arm, and he's not the most accurate guy in the world either at times. But you have to kind of work with what you have, and Vedral is what he is. I don't think he's going to get any better, but he's not going to get any worse. And as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, you would ideally think the run game and special teams and defense could kind of win you these games.
Yes.
But you can't be scoring 13 points all season long. You're you're not going to win games like that.
And you're not going to win games if you turn the ball over either, which is why, again, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm willing to give the coaches the benefit of the doubt, the way that they talk about him and describe how well he's playing. But yes, I mean, that offensive line, I think, was the most impressive outcome of the game. And I know it wasn't all rainy, but I think that's a very promising sign that you plug in a kid that young and the offensive line plays maybe better. So he has to be part of that. And this is still, they've got some young players. And I've been asking you this question several times during the season. I asked it last week. So now 1 week after we were wondering, okay, is this now the starting lineup that he's going to play in the Michigan game? The what he figured out in those first 3 games will that be the line that he's going to hope will take us places? What did you find out, and what did you think about who those 5 players possibly can be?
So I think I talked about this last time. Nick Crimmon is clearly the solidified starter at center. Cedrice Palliant has arguably been their best offensive lineman this year at left guard. So those two are like the mainstays. Troy Rainey filled in very, very nicely. And as long as that continues, I can't see a reason why he wouldn't stay at right guard. Now, the tackles is where it gets interesting. Holland Pierce had 49 snaps as a starter at right tackle. Brendan Bordner had 49 snaps as a starter at left tackle. Raekwon O'Neal came in and filled in and had 51 snaps as a backup. Yeah, but overall, they did really good pass blocking, and this was one of their better run blocking games, and I think it kind of showed based on the way that Pacheco ran. Pacheco had a couple openings and ended up running for over 100 yards. But overall, this offensive line, I think the interior is pretty much set. Now the exterior is still question marks. Like it's still like tackle roulette, as I like to call it. There's 3 tackles, and I kind of understand that they just want to keep rotating. If one guy's doing better than another, and you have 3 guys that are like very similar levels, why not just keep rotating guys in?
Yes,
you'll have fresh bodies too going against the depleted defensive line.
And it works out perfectly because again, you more than likely you have the one guy that can play both sides. And that just really makes it a perfect switch off and gives guys an opportunity to rest. Now, when those guys played, and when Rutgers was able to move the football, again, that's what we'll find out ourselves. But just one game doesn't really tell it, what we really want to know about this offensive line until they do it a second game and a third game. And that kind of leads us to Florida, to Ohio State, which is the reason why we're doing the show. Because, again, I did the show earlier this week. And Keith Sargent, who covers Rutgers, the beat reporter, he's been covering Rutgers for NJ.com for like 20 years. So that's already available. That's what the show I did with Ryan Dunleavy. But I figured, okay, this is just too big a game. Rutgers was really close last week. We got to do this again. And remember last week I said I really felt that Rutgers would have a better chance to beat Ohio State than Michigan. Now that Rutgers actually almost beat Michigan, I'm just going to stay true. And I'm just still going to say, you know what? Yeah. I don't care what anybody says until Ohio State proves that they're not in this funk that they've been in. Because last week's game means nothing. Akron is terrible. So all we've seen out of Ohio State in 3 games are 3 lackluster performances. That's all we've seen. So maybe they wake up against Rutgers and then go on and they're in the playoffs and they're fighting for a national championship. Maybe, because that's Ohio State. But until they show that to me, I'm just going to say, you know what? I think this is going to be a competitive football game.
That's where I'm intrigued. I do think I agree with you in the fact that they have a better chance against Ohio State than they do against Michigan. But it's weird because, like, most likely you're missing your number 1 cornerback in Max Melton this weekend.
That's where it's going to hurt them.
And Ohio State,
yes.
Yeah, Ohio State's receiving core is ridiculously good. I know that they sound like they haven't been that good this year, but they're number 8 in points per game, averaging 43, 44, something like that. They're very, very talented offensively. They have one of the best running backs in the nation in true freshman Travion Henderson.
Oh, they're balanced beautifully. Michigan doesn't have balance. Ohio State does.
No, it's the offense is great. It's their defense which is lacking a lot. So that's where if you're Rutgers, you have to find a way to get Cruikshank and Melton and Pacheco going. You got to get this offense rolling really quickly, and you should be able to ideally. I don't know how many points you're going to score against Ohio State because it's at the end of the day, it's still a very talented defense. It's just a lot of scheme fixes that they're trying to fix. They just switched defensive coordinators like middle of the season almost, or I shouldn't say middle of the season, beginning of the season. And Matt Barnes and Kerry Combs was running the defense. Now it's Matt Barnes, and it's weird because it's kind of a weird situation they have going on. But as they can figure out it defensively, they have enough talent that they should be able to make another run at the Big Ten championship, if not the national championship.
But that's also going to depend on the quarterback. Now,
that too, but it sounds like C.J. Stroud is playing. So
and look,
we'll see what happens there,
whether it's Stroud or the other kid, was it McCord? Fact is they're young.
Yes, McCord.
And they played on. Stroud played on the road once at Minnesota. Okay, he was all right. Yep. I mean, it was a close game until a couple of big Ohio State plays, which again you would expect is going to happen because even in this week against Rutgers, because they're just too talented. You're not going to be able to pin them in, and it's not going to be Ohio State 10-play drives. It's going to be, all right, how many of the quick strike drives can Rutgers avoid? Because they're probably going to hit at least one or two. You can't let them do more than that. If they have 4 or 5, it's what? Another, I think I read where when I was looking at all the scores, Ohio State has scored 49 points minimum in each matchup against Rutgers. And if they give up another 4 or 5 big plays, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be another 49 points. Now, maybe Rutgers could score 35, but that's not going to help Rutgers win a football game.
Yeah, see, now if you're Rutgers, you can't afford to do what you did against Michigan. I know they definitely adjusted very well after the first 2 touchdowns, but the first 2 drives for Michigan were both touchdowns. So it's like it was a 17-play drive, which they literally just ran down the gut, and then the second one was just a 4-play drive. Like, you can't afford for some of these things to happen, especially against a very talented Ohio State team. The minute they get that lead, they're going to cruise to that easy victory just with the run game alone. So it's going to be challenging. I do think with getting Patrice Renee back is going to help a little bit in stopping this receiver core, but Garrett Wilson's got 400 yards on the year. We all know who Chris Olave is, who's one of the best receivers in the country. They have a very talented passing game. And then even tight end, Jeremy Ruckert out of New York. I covered him in high school. I thought he was phenomenal in high school, and now he's reciprocating all that at the college level. It's a very talented Ohio State team. And I do think Rutgers keeps it competitive early on because I'm very impressed by the way this defense played. But I don't know if they're going to be able to hang long-term in terms of can they go score for score with Ohio State if need be. Based on the numbers that they had this year, probably not. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we'll see because this defense is very, very good. It's
one of those games that Schiano talks about all the time. It's one of these games. You're not going to win without the turnover battle being won.
Yeah.
And that's where there's a couple of circumstances where Rutgers has some of these edges, which is the reason, again, why I was a little bit more confident about this game. And that is that even though Ohio State's balanced, Michigan's strength was their run offense. We knew Rutgers' weakness on defense was their run defense. Ohio State can do both, but Rutgers' strength is now their pass defense. And that's really what scares me about Ohio State and what should, more than anything. As good as their running game is, it's the passing game that really scares you more than anything because it's that quick strike passing game that can kill you. Throw in the fact that they're one of the worst penalized teams in college football, Ohio State. And Rutgers is one of the best. So these are the matchups Rutgers must take advantage of. They've got to continue to win the penalty battles, the turnover battles, and again, limit those big plays. If they can do that, I think it's a 4-quarter football game.
I think the only way they're going to win this one is you need a big special teams play out of Aaron Cruikshank. I know Michigan did a great job of not giving him the ball or giving him any chance of returns, but if Ohio State gives him any little shot of like a return, he's got to be able to take it back for either a very deep return or if not a touchdown. And I do think they're going to get a little trickery this weekend, just because if you saw last year, last year against Ohio State, they pulled everything out of the magic hat. They pulled the reverse punt return, the 17 or 16 lateral touchdown.
That was the Max Melton one, right? That was the one where they who was the one who threw the pass? You remember?
In the punt return
to Melton. Was it Cruikshank?
I think it was Bo threw it to Cruikshank or Cruikshank threw it to Bo, one of the two.
Yeah.
I forget which it was. That was the punt return, and then Yeah, and then that crazy 13-14 lateral touchdown, not touchdown, whatever you want to call it.
And then, of course, the one where who was the tackle that caught the touchdown pass?
Raekwon O'Neal. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, if he's not out there, they might not expect it. And you throw it to big 6'7" Holland Pierce,
gives
you
him
never
something
know.
to think about. At least that's good.
Yeah. I do think they'll get a little crazy this weekend. I think you kind of have to against the make up for that talent gap.
The only thing, though, and this is where I think they got a little bit cute last week, where some of the cutesy little trickeration type of plays they were trying on offense, both of them were failed miserably. And and again, we were all wondering what he was doing going for it on 4th and 10 at the Michigan 45. That was one I'm sure he wanted back, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
But but those trick plays, it's just they had the trick plays, they had the 4th and 10 crazy call, and then they had the one where Langdon did not convert on the 4th and short.
That was the biggest question mark ever. You put Langdon out there, I think everyone kind of knows exactly what the heck's going to happen. He's running it without a doubt.
Come up with a trick.
So I mean,
come up with a misdirection.
I'd do something, or even he's not the worst passer in the world. Maybe
you can throw it 5 yards.
See what happens, but yeah. So I'm saying, that was a questionable one. The other one was just as bad, probably. But the thing with trick plays is if they work, everyone's like, wow, that was genius. If they don't, it's like, no, that was stupid. And
I didn't understand. Have you found out the whole deal on the penalty? When they had the 3 linemen set up and they called the penalty a formation penalty because obviously the crew did their typical bad job who was covering the game. And if they had a sideline reporter, that's that person's job, and they always do nothing to help us out.
Yeah.
So I never got a real reading, and I didn't hear anybody ask the question in the press conference, why did they call a penalty? What did you coach the play wrong? Did you set it up wrong, or did the players set it up wrong? Because that was weird. Usually, I mean, they didn't call timeout. You would have thought that Gleason would have well, no, they're not setting up right. I got to call timeout. So I didn't get an explanation.
I couldn't really answer that one. Unless we're getting an explanation in that post-game press conference, I kind of just forget about it completely and just move on to the next
Nobody
weekend.
asked. Yeah.
But
that's disappointing.
So on. There was a lot of questions to be asked.
You don't know. Now, you're thinking, well, that's a bad coaching move then, isn't it? I mean, how could you diagram a play that's illegal?
Now if you're talking about the Julius Turner penalty or disqualification, it's like, what the heck was that? But that's a different story.
But it shows you how really hard the team played, that their best interior player leaves, and they actually played better.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Jamari Chroma filled in very, very nicely for him. And he actually he's an intriguing prospect because he came in under Ash, but started out at defensive end, was really skinny, packed on pounds, and then all of a sudden this week he showed flashes last year before an injury, came back this year, and now he's playing phenomenal. I think you're going to see him in that defensive line rotation from here on out.
Look, at this point,
very good player.
Things are a lot different as a Rutgers fan in the New York, New Jersey area compared to what's going on with the professional teams. So,
they're the only team that's winning.
Even though there's a loss, it's okay, and they're all rebuilding teams. But one team has got this really positive vibe going on right now, and I don't want to lose that. And this is I think this is the only opponent left on the schedule that can really, send us home packing, tail between our legs. Like, why did we even think we belonged here kind of message? That I just want to come out of this almost feeling like we did last week. Like, okay, we're not expecting to win, but if we can push it to the fourth quarter, if we can show people that we're close and just even have a good feeling ourselves about watching our football team play well and be competitive, that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I was listening to the radio before. I think it was 94.7, that country station. They're like, hey, they made a quick little remark. They're like, yeah, Rutgers football this weekend, the only winning football team in New Jersey. And it was just like, oh, okay, wow, I didn't expect that one. But yeah, they got to build on that. It's weird because this might be the only team I mentioned this on our podcast the other day. This might be the only team maybe that suffered a loss and actually gained votes in the AP poll.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, so they ended up getting like 6 votes or 6 points. I forget what it's exactly called, but they ended up gaining votes in the poll, and it's pretty impressive because this team's kind of showing they belong against arguably Michigan's best team in the past like 5-7 years, maybe more.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think they'll be competitive this weekend, and I think they're going to build on that momentum. And I think the fan base is starting to buy in a little bit too, because now you're 3-0. You just went competitive against one of the Big Ten's best, and then you're going to go take on one of the Big Ten's best at home, which, like you said, they're kind of young on offense. And if the crowd can get behind them and get a pretty loud SHI stadium, you really never know. That's why they play the game.
That's right. They're only a 15-point dog.
Which
so
is
this
crazy
isn't like
compared to last year before, and so on.
30, 40, whatever. It's 15. Yeah. I mean, Bowling Green's upset over Minnesota. Now that's an upset. But that's not Rutgers. Now, of course, it'll look like a Bowling Green Minnesota upset because it's Rutgers beating Ohio State. That just sounds weird. But really, when you're only a 15-point dog, people are now showing Rutgers respect, including Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. This could be the first time they ever beat Ohio State. So we'll see.
They're going to beat them eventually.
They're going to. I mean, I think so. I just don't know if this year's the year or maybe a little bit down the line. Who knows?
You know, again, another reason why this would be a nice year is because, once again, Ohio State's got some young players. They're just going to keep getting older.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, next year it's at Ohio State. I mean, you don't want to think about, okay, beating Ohio State's one thing, attempting to beat them. Trying to beat them at home compared to on the road, that's completely,
It's night and day atmosphere.
So if you're going to do it, you either do it now or, Gavin Wimsett will be the quarterback in a couple of years when Ohio State comes back to Rutgers.
I'm very eager to see the Gavin Wimsett, Quinn Ewers battle, either next year or 2 years down the line, between the number 1 pro style versus the number 3 dual threat. Like that's going to be really interesting to watch.
All right. Well, I hope so. I mean, if Rutgers can find themselves a quarterback that can take this program to the next level, just imagine the possibilities. But again, I think that's also the one thing that we have to give Vedral, some props for, and that is, again, not turning the ball over, because they're just not capable of beating these teams if he does that. And it's just, he has his limitations. It's unfortunate. Your prediction?
Ooh, I had it pulled up. Give me 1 sec. I do think they do beat the spread, but I still think this is an Ohio State team whose offense is, like I said before, phenomenal. I'm going with 42-28, Ohio State, but I do think Rutgers keeps it close in the first half. I think they'll play very, very competitive. You're not going to see them give up, but they will beat that spread, which is pretty big. Barely, but they'll beat it.
That's not a bad number. I like that. I like that score. That's about right. So you think it's like last week, though, a full quarter game?
It's probably, I think, like mid-third, fourth. I think the guys in the trenches aren't going to be able to hang with the 5 stars that Ohio State has on the defensive line. So it's going to be tough. I think like I said, they're going to fight tooth and nail. They're going to pull out some trickery, I'm sure. They're going to do a couple special teams things. But I do think, end of the day, Ohio State ends up pulling away with this victory. And it might be a 7-point game going in the fourth quarter. And then, obviously, I think I had 14-point difference. I think they might get a garbage time touchdown, and that's going to put it away or something like that.
What's your situation? When are you going to go? You going to get there early?
Yeah, I'm going to get there. My family, or my uncle's a big tailgater, so he'll be there. So I'll be there at around like 10:30, 11.
All right, man. And then you're going to, of course, have the post-game show, correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna have the post-game presser as soon as it's over. I'll upload that. I'll have a bunch of stuff on our website, Rutgers.rivals.com, and then we always have a bunch of articles. We'll have recruit reactions. I'll be talking to the recruits.
A lot of recruits there, huh?
Oh, there's right now. I think we have over 35 confirmed on our website with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 4-stars already confirmed. So it's like number 1 kid in New Jersey next year's coming. Number 1 kid in New Jersey this year's coming. Like it's a pretty big recruiting list. Some of Florida's top kids are making a trip up. One of Texas's top defensive ends is coming up. So they have a lot of dudes coming up. So we'll have all that on our website right after though. So
awesome. Hey, another reason why it'd be great if Rutgers can give them something to think about.
Yeah, if they could pull it off, I'm sure these recruits will have.
If they could pull it off, forget
they'll have a ton to say.
I'm not even going there.
Hey.
That's like one of those dreams, because if people thought Rutgers fans were stoked about beating Louisville back in the day, just imagine if they were able to pull off one of the and Rutgers was a top 10 type of team then. Yeah, this would still be bigger.
See, I don't know if the Twitter world is like ready for a cocky Rutgers.
Probably not.
This would be interesting. I would love to see all the fans just going back and forth with Ohio State, Penn State, all them. Oh, that'd be funny.
Yeah, well, we can only dream. Okay, Richie, great job as always. We'll talk to you again sometime soon. And next week it's Michigan State. So one more home game. One. Big game next week because you don't want to lose 3 in a row if they drop the game on Saturday.
Yep, 100%. All right, Greg, I appreciate everything.
Take care.